what we're going to talk about here today is a technology that we believe has the potential to dramatically alter your productivity down on the shop floor. It is tried and tested. It's probably not something any of you have ever heard of, but it's in production in one of the largest shipbuilders in Europe. To Tom's presentation this morning, there's a lot of really cool technologies out there. Finding time to evaluate them all, looking at where they impact your organization the most by determining your ROI. I mean, these are all things that have already been worked out for this particular platform. I do the same presentation, but I put a spin on it that speaks to digital twins. You heard Tom this morning talk about digital twins. It is on many people's minds. This particular platform is one that is being looked at by a number of classification organizations and others to help them move forward in their digital transformation. Taking some of their existing applications that are what are called thick applications sitting on a desktop, moving them to the cloud and using technology to help do that. They're evaluating SmartShape as a platform for doing that. It is being looked at by several organizations in Canada as their means to taking those initial baby steps towards using digital twins. Digital twins, we know that if you ask 10 people what a digital twin is, you get 10 different answers. The part that we like to focus on is what is it we have today, what can we get started with? We wait for a perfect world, as in, all vessels that are being manufactured. When they're completed, there's an absolute, reliable, trustworthy, as-built model that is the starting point of your digital twin. We know that's not happening today. So what can we make use of what's available today to get started? Because as we know, the path to, a complete digital transformation, one that's going to be made in baby steps. And it's going to take a lot of people to get involved, a lot of people to buy in, and a lot of people to change. We talked about that this morning. So today we're going to focus on the value of SmartShape for the shipbuilder. How it has benefited one shipbuilder in particular, STX, jumping ahead a little bit. I won't talk a great deal about it. And then we're going to risk something pretty dramatic here today. Nobody likes to do live demos. And I was always told many, many years ago that if you attempt to do a live demo, then the demo demons are going to come along and bite you and you know what. But we thought, what more powerful way to make a statement about how good this technology is to attempt that on a really sketchy hotel Wi-Fi. So don't take that as a way of apologizing ahead of time if for whatever reason it fails. But we've tested it a number of times, and I think it works. So Pierre, Charles, and Alan are going to join me. They have some tablets at their disposal, and as we always say, I'm from Missouri, so prove it. So we're going to do a live demo. Alan and Pierre Charles are going to go out into the audience. They're going to randomly pick someone to verify that they are taking some action on their tablets that will then come back to the central model. So we'll talk a little bit about when we get there. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go through a little bit of a PowerPoint presentation, bring everybody up to the same level of understanding of what SmartShape is, not just from the technology, but what it does as a function, as a utility, and what the value is. So I just did a last-minute edit on the slide. SmartShape is a product developed by a company called Aeris, A-E-R-Y-S, not to be confused with Aeris. Bruno here? No, Bruno's not here. They are a European-based company based out of France. They now have a presence in North America, and InnovMarine are their agents in North America, primarily for the shipbuilding and offshore world. So that's why we're here today to talk to you about that. Okay. I always like to ask probing questions that in sales vernacular kind of leading. You can't say yes, you can't say no, you can only give an opinion and how you feel about it. So, let's take a look at a few of those. What would it mean to you? Put yourself in the minds of a production. You're down on the shop floor. To get your 3D model down at the assembly hall to visually explore and interrogate every part, assembly, and system within a block, or whatever section of the ship you're working on. So we talked earlier about 3D. We talked about the current generation expecting to work in 3D. They come out of university having a lot less exposure to the 2D world than they do to the 3D world. So what would that mean to you? So give that some thought. What if I can navigate that model 360 degrees, spin it, turn it, look at it any which way I want, and look at all views of an assembly prior to starting some work that I have to do? Whatever my work package is for the day, what would that mean to me? What if I could also provide detailed instructions instead of rolling out a big 2D drawing? Not to say that that's bad, but instead of having all of that rolled up in paper, what if I had all that information that I could access within the model, reveal it as necessary, and use that as part of my work package and my day-to-day activities? And assembly procedures with support for AR. We talk about virtual reality. I think in the world of manufacturing, AR is going to have a bigger play than virtual reality. Virtual reality, I believe, is great when you're in the design shop upstairs. But when you're down on the shop floor, you want to be able to blend what you're seeing with the work that you're going to be doing. So to be able to blend the real with the augmented, I think is the path that we're going to go down. What would it mean if you could update the construction or installation status? So whatever activity that you've got to do in your particular work package that day, in real time within the model. So many processes today, and I'm not saying all of them, it's some paper-based process. I've got a checklist that I've got to go through, check it all off. I go back to my office, either hand it to somebody else, or I do it myself. What happens every time we get a human involved in transcribing information that's paper-based into a computer system? We put ourselves at risk of errors, right? So if we can eliminate that whole risk of error that arises from manual processes, because we all believe that the path to improve performance is through automation, and that's the only reason technology exists, is to support your automation initiatives. Okay, so if I can do that in real time, not only am I reducing the risk of errors, but I'm shortening the cycle times, and everybody's under pressure to get stuff done faster and more accurately. Now, people are always going to ask the question, especially if you're building more ships, well, how secure is this information? If it's floating through Wi-Fi and it's going through here and it's going through there, what can I do to ensure that that data that is now going out into my fab shop is secure? So we'll make sure that we talk about that, but we want to make sure that the workers can get access to that anywhere, anytime, regardless of where they are in the yard. And last but not least, what if I could do this utilizing standard commercial off-the-shelf smart devices, phones, tablets? I'm going to be using a browser here today with a consistent user interface, meaning whether I go from an Android to an iOS to a Windows environment, the user interface is identical. And what does that translate to? Zero retraining. We like to say that when you're in a SmartShape application, if you can wander your way through Facebook without getting hurt, you can use the SmartShape app just as easily. It's that intuitive, and you'll see that a little bit later. Okay, this is a key piece that you can remind me time and time again. Oh, good. Okay. Your single trusted source of truth, meaning if I've got printed drawings, we've all heard the story. If it's printed, it's history. If you're reading it online, it's current. So if I can use that same analogy and say, if I'm looking at information that's live on my tablet from that central trusted source of truth, it's real time. I don't need to be concerned whether my drawings are the most current one. So that also helps in that thinking as well. Okay, so we've all agreed that maybe getting this information to the hands of the folks on the shop floor is useful. What are the challenges that we face, right? Well, we all know, as we work with ShipConstructor, that some of these 3D models can get really, really large. And if I'm going to take even a section of that, put it on a device and say, okay, off you go, the last thing we all want is to have to wait and wait and wait for it to load. So speed is important. The ability to get that information onto my device quickly and not have to worry about lag. So we've got to overcome that. So that's a key criteria for thinking about a mobile solution. The other challenge when we look at CAD models is they only contain the attribute information about the embedded CAD objects, right? Whether it's mass properties, you might put a few additional pieces of information in there as attribute information to help you connect to your enterprise applications, right? But when we look at these models, we don't stuff them with our VFI information or MI information necessarily, because that just gets really, really big. And that's not where it should live. It should live in your ERP and your PLM systems. So we talked about that. Most of that information is external to my model. I have attributes within my model that reference it, but if I then take that model and go offline, where's the rest of that information? It's still back on the land-based enterprise application. So I need to be able to patriate that information together. The other thing is that the information needed is not always graphical, nor does it need to be. And we won't get too far into it, but one of the key capabilities of SmartShape is it can take non-graphical information, anything from a flat Excel CSV file, and we can render it to a scene, merge it with any kind of model information, so you get anywhere between 2.5 and 3D information. People say, so why is that important? When you think about a shipbuilder, when they take the design intent model and then they produce all their fabrication drawings, there's not always a situation where you take those fabrication drawings and update the model. So we talk about this notion of an as-built. How reliable is the as-built? Well, it's only as reliable as the builder put the information back in. But somewhere that as-built information exists. And even if it's just 2D, then I've got my 3D design intent model. If I can bring those together, what have I done? I've started solving that problem by having a reliable, trustworthy as-built that is the beginning of a digital twin. So that's where that's going to prove to be quite helpful. The other thing that we've heard is there are other vendors out there talking about visual collaboration solutions. One of the things that we keep hearing is that they require a persistent or consistent connection to the network. Well, we all work in shipyards. How many shipyards have Wi-Fi end-to-end? They don't, right? So you can't rely on having a persistent network connection if you're going to talk about having a mobile visual collaboration solution. So those are some of the obstacles that need to be overcome before any shipyard is going to consider implementing something like this. Okay. So you know we're leading up to this. How do we solve this? Well, there's a product that I said earlier is already in production by a very large shipyard. It's called SmartShape. You can all read this, but it is what we call a mobile visual collaboration solution. We'll define that in a moment, where I can take my model data, any kind of enterprise asset information, my technical asset packages, smash them all together, put it on a tablet, and go do my job. Real simple. There are vendors who claim they can do that today. It is our experience in working with the folks at Aris, the developers of SmartShape, and their experience in Europe as well, that any vendor today that tells you they can do mobile visual collaboration on a standard tablet, I would challenge you to ask them to prove it. So that sounds like a bit of a boast, but it's true. The key thing here is to be able to move gigabytes of information really quickly. The little demo that you're going to see here today, we're moving a small block. That's a few hundred megabytes that we're just going to be moving over standard Wi-Fi, and you'll see how quick it is. Okay, just to go through a couple of definitions so that we're all on the same page of what we mean by mobile. Really simple. The ability to use standard commercial off-the-shelf technology, Android tablets, iOS, iPads, thank you, and phones. No custom proprietary hardware platforms. There are a few solutions out there that require that. Well, the problem with having to use a solution that's got proprietary hardware is, well, that proprietary hardware may not be what your shipyard is standardized on. So it presents all sorts of problems. Okay, real time. The ability to connect in real time to my enterprise applications, and to be able to get and give information from that model, right? So as I'm changing things in the model as a result of completing a work package, I want to be able to update my enterprise applications in real time. Again, that's that shortening the cycle of time required. And the ability to do that both online and offline, and that's what we call full synchronization. Visualization. Again, you ask 10 people what you mean by visualization, they'll say 3D, they'll say this, they'll say that. In the context of SmartShape, it's real simple. It's a graphical representation of the 3D model. Whatever portion of the 3D model that you have loaded, by users who need to see and act on it, so do stuff with it. To measure, to mark up, to annotate, to collaborate, verify, all those things that you do in a shipyard setting. That's what we say. Let's visualize the model. And an important piece, and it might be on the next one, it's not. People will ask about visual fidelity or integrity. In other words, when we take the model, and it could be a gigabyte-sized model, put it on a tablet, people are worried, are we dumbing it down? Are we decimating it, I think is the word that people use. And the answer is no. Whatever section of that CAD model that you load onto your tablet, it's a one-to-one representation. So no geometry is lost. No accuracy within the measurements and the dimensions of the model is lost. So it's a complete one-to-one translation. So there's no worry about losing some of that. Smart model. Well, we've talked about CAD models. CAD models are, for all intents and purposes, intended as sources for your 3D drawings. They have a certain amount of information in there, but for the most part, all valuable information sits outside. And we talked about that earlier. So when we talk about the smart model is your graphical information plus all the other information you need to support the intended business function down on the shop floor, for example. And the key thing there is that always remains where it belongs, in the ERP or the PL system. I'm only borrowing it for a short time. It's reference information. When I carry out my activities, I'm updating the central source of truth. Last but not least, an as-built model. Again, we all have different impressions of what an as-built model is. There's many different as-built models depending on the intended purpose. For us, it's a subset of the digital twin with the appropriate level of detail, both on the graphical side and the structured data, the information necessary to carry out that particular work function. So there's some definitions that we find are useful to help people kind of be on the same page with us. Okay. Next, when you look at this diagram from left to right, it is a way to illustrate the simplicity of the SmartShape application. Again, I've got my external asset information, whether it's sitting in my PLM or ERP, and I've got my as-built models. It could even be a design intent model, it doesn't matter at this point in time. Using the SmartShape engine, we'll call it that, I will merge all of that information together. That's necessary. It's predefined at the start of it, when you configure an application. Stream that through a very secure cloud, right? And that can either be on your premises behind your firewall or through a public cloud, depending on your application. And then it's delivered to the end user for whatever requirement they use, just using standard tablets. So that's as simple as it is. All the mystery, shall we say, exists in the middle two pieces, right? And how the folks at Eris in developing SmartShape have been able to develop a platform that's thin, not just a browser-based application, but it's a thin architecture from start to finish, which allows them to very quickly and securely, transmit gigabytes of information to these smart devices. It runs both in iOS, we talked about it, as an application. It runs on Android as an application, the SmartShape application, and it runs on a browser. For today's demonstration, I'm running it in a browser. Alan and Pierre Charles will be running it on their Android tablets using the SmartShape application. Through the cloud, connecting to our external databases, and the key thing here to think about is it's bi-directional. I was talking with Tom at lunchtime, and again, one of the challenges is, we can get all sorts of, there's applications and solutions out there today where you can get your 3D model on a tablet, take it down to the shop floor, and use it as what? Reference. But if you're actually going to do something, how do I get those activities recorded and communicated back to my enterprise applications in an efficient and fast way with no human intervention? That's the key, the ability to have that bi-directional communication. And we talked about offline. We all know that in a shipyard, 80% of the folks who consume this information don't sit in front of workstations, they're not CAD users, they're not CAD literate. They need to have that information in a form that they can digest it and use it easily, do their work, and then be able to connect back to, shall we say, the corporate network. And do that with no fear of losing any of the data and the integrity of any of the data. So that's a key differentiator, that offline mode. We talked earlier about some solutions that are out there today that require a persistent connection to the local area network, because you're connected to the enterprise app. We just unload the data that we need along with the graphics and put it on the tablet. For those of you that are into overall system architecture, this diagram is really just intended to show you how SmartShape works. One of the most important takeaways from this is we don't require you to change how you work. We work the way you operate today. So if you look at the top left-hand side, there's all my existing apps. There's where my vendor furnished information lives. That's where my manufacturing information lives. That's where other data lives that are all part of the shipbuilding cycle. I've got my existing CAD tools. These just happen to be 3 of the different CAD platforms that we integrate with. One thing I can tell you is that SmartShape is CAD agnostic. We don't really care what design platform your ship model was built in. So we bring all those together. There's some specific middleware. You see that as orange, where we may need to do a little bit of tweaking for your particular file type, but it's all brought together and then pushed over to through the cloud into the end user interface, which are the tablets. So when you think about your own environments, it's pretty simple to understand how we can take all that information and move it into SmartShape, and just using your existing infrastructure, no changes. We talked earlier about, okay, well, what if some of the information I need to visualize and provide to the folks who are going to need it doesn't exist in a graphical format. It's not a CAD diagram. We can do that. If you look at the lower left-hand side of this diagram, I can take information from the database. It's unstructured. It can be an Excel spreadsheet. I can render that, married up with the appropriate sections of the CAD model, and give you that kind of 2.5D view of it, right? So that also helps us when we're looking at the question, how do I get some as-built models out of the shipyard today where I don't necessarily have it in the CAD application or in the model? That's one way of doing that as well. So the takeaway there is to understand that it doesn't have to be existing CAD information. It doesn't have to be database information. It can be a variety of different types, and we can render those to a scene and present them to you graphically. Okay, a little bit about STX. We talked about them earlier. They are one of the flagship customers for Aris. When they were awarded a contract several years ago to build one of the largest and most complex cruise ships, like any shipyard, they're always looking to optimize their manufacturing performance. Get stuff done quicker, especially the stuff that's repetitive. So they wanted to find ways to improve the time it took workers to assemble and install systems above the ceiling. Their current methodology, or sort of now their past methodology, was they'd have roughly 40 pieces in it and a bucket. Two workers would take this bucket along with some drawings, go to that particular place where they're going to be doing it, study the drawings, begin the partial assembly and welding, then put it on the ceiling. STX said, you know what, there's got to be a better way of doing that. If we can give the information to these workers in a way that facilitates a better visualization of the space and present it to them in a way that it makes it easier to understand what goes where and how it goes, then we think we're getting somewhere. So they determined that the best way to do that was to put 3D information. We've got the model up in engineering, why can't we do the models for the folks in the production? Well, there was no way to do that, number one. Number two, the other challenge that often comes up from the floor is there's either too much information on one drawing or not enough information. And then you end up with more drawings as you start separating the levels of detail. So if I can put all that in a 3D model and then only reveal that amount of detail that is necessary for the particular function, then I'm starting to make some progress. So here's some of the challenges that STX said are requirements before they would consider a solution. First, it must be mobile. So we talked about that. Not everyone sits at a desk, especially the folks down on the shop floor. Not everyone is a CAD user or a PC power user. They're more familiar with their smartphone app, and that's true. Lack of an internet or Wi-Fi access across a very large shipyard. We all know that's true. So the solution must work offline and sync when a tablet comes back online. So that was the third requirement. Of course, the fourth one is data security. Right? They needed to know that simply, because SmartShape was at that time a cloud-based application that went through the public internet, they needed to have it on their servers, so it had to be able to be hosted in their environment. So they looked around, and STX said, you know what, the only application that we see out there that can meet these four criteria is this product called SmartShape from the folks at Aris. They implemented it, and within a very short period of time, they were able to reduce what took approximately an hour and 45 minutes for this one repetitive task done 600 times on average for one of these cruise ships, and they were able to reduce it down to about 25 minutes. So that's a significant reduction in time, not to mention the improvements. That was just the assembly time. They didn't even measure yet the time that they were saving to get the results of that activity communicated back as part of their manufacturing information. Big benefits there as well. And they're also looking at using markerless augmented reality to assist in that, maybe get it down to one person. So we'll know more about that in a few months because they're just about to go live with this the latter portion of this year. So that's enough about STX. If you come to our table, we can give you a bit more detail. What we're going to do now is do a very short demonstration. And what we're going to do is to show you that ability to work offline, right? Because we believe that's a unique capability. So what I'm going to show you is the model as it exists on the central file. Alan and Pierre Charles, they have the model loaded on their tablets. So let's play out a scenario here. It's the start of the day. The tablets have been preloaded with the information, the work packages that they have to carry out. They're going to do that. They're going to carry out their work offline, so they're going to disconnect from the network. They'll show you that. Once the work is completed, they're going to reconnect to the network as if they were coming back into the office, and then you'll see the central model refresh and update automatically. So we've We tried this 3 times, it worked 3 times. Let's hope we're 4 times lucky. Okay, so I'm going to, any questions so far? I know I've thrown a lot of information at you. Any believers, any non-believers?
Let's see.
I believe.
Let's see.
Let's see, okay. All right, this is SmartShape. In simple terms, it is the user interface, and you'll see it on the tablet, absolutely identical. I happen to be looking at a ShipConstructor model here right now. There are a number of different configurations that I can predefine configurations. There are views. One is the piping status, one is the well status. I can switch between all of those. I'm in the default right now. I mean, we're all familiar with working with 3D models and manipulating and stuff like that, so I'm not going to show you any of that kind of stuff here. But what Pierre, Charles, and Alan are going to do is I'm going to switch to my piping status. So their activities today involve them being down on the shop floor, and they've got to do an inspection. They've got to interrogate the status of a particular pipe, its state of installation, and whether it was installed properly. So they're going to walk some people in the audience here. They're going to show you what they're going to do. First of all, the tablets are they online or offline right now? Okay, so the tablets are offline. So they're going down into the fab shop, and they're going to show you exactly what their workload is, or their work task is. So what they're going to do is, these 2 pipes here, the upper and the lower pipe, I think Alan's going to make an annotation, and Pierre Charles is going to change a behavior. Now, I didn't explain behaviors. Behaviors are our terminology for an activity. So I predefined these behaviors. These behaviors are what I call work actions. So I'm going to change the status of the pipe, installed, not installed, whatever, right? So those are all predefined ahead of time. So Pierre Charles is going to change the status of the pipe. Alan's going to add an annotation. And then if all goes well, they're going to come back online. And this picture here is going to update to show that the annotation's been added and the pipe status has been changed. And we use color as a way to indicate change.
So you've got your pipe model here. So,
you know, some standard Android tablets, like Galaxy S3s or something like that.
Rotate the model as you want. You can lock also the blueprint view. But in this case, we're stuck in the blueprint view so that I cannot rotate the model, I can only pan. But I can change my configuration so right now be able to 3D orbit like Steve was showing. In this case, we have assigned some behaviors to adjust the pipe color based on the status of the pipe. So in this case, if I go and select the pipe here, then I can look at their properties. And in the properties, you have also the possibility to replace it with the pre-populated status. In this case, I have like installed, test, control. I just select one, but you can batch select like a series of pipe based on the common criteria if you go all to the same spool, or if you just cross-select the different pipe. So in this case, I will change the status to control, save. The color will change based on status. Then when I'll go back online, then the change will upload all the change I did to the model directly and merge that back. Same thing, like Alan is doing an annotation. Basically, if you notice that there's a problem report, something that needs to be corrected, then you can populate comments associated with that part, and that will be uploaded directly and synced to the main model instead of having to retype everything all the defects you've noticed.
So you'll see that Alan's change has already been. Did you come back online, Alan? You must have come back.
I'm syncing now.
You're syncing now. Okay. What are the things to keep in mind? I'm not moving the model back and forth each time. All I'm moving is a little bit of data, right? So in this case, it was an annotation that was attached to that object in the model. So when Alan came back online and hit the synchronize, it instantly recorded the presence of that annotation. So it's just a little bit of information that's moving. Next, I believe Pierre Charles is coming online and synchronizing. So we should see, I believe it's the upper pipe, Pierre Charles, that you changed the status of. So it should say a color change. I may have to step away from the scene and refresh it. You tell me when you're back online, Pierre Charles.
I'm in process of connecting to the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
That's our bottleneck.
It's a bottleneck, yeah. Hotel Wi-Fi, we know how fast and stable that is. But hey, if it works in kind of an environment like this, then I think it'll work pretty well in your shop.
Okay, so you change from orange to blue. So there's,
On the
that will
tablet.
tell me that the tablets now have access to internet, because depending if it doesn't have access to internet, then it will be loaded locally in offline mode. So I just had to put credential.
All right. So you're back on mic here, Charles?
No, I just need to pick up the file, so share with me, because we're sharing the same model.
Okay.
So yeah, so I'm using now, so use switch.
And it is the ShipCon.
The reason he has to switch is because this version doesn't realize that once it's updated, it works. And now, what I selected I was, it's now, before it was orange now, so.
Right. So that's effectively the same thing that Pierre Charles. So a very simple example, but don't let that take away from the power of what we've just done. That was an offline operation, so you could be anywhere in the yard. You recorded an activity, no different than you do today in your inspection. And then the moment I come back online,
And you see that there was
the central model
an
is
orange icon saying that the model was offline. Now it's just loading and resyncing with the main model. And as soon as it stops syncing, then I will show off as an additional user on the top left corner. So right now you see there's InnovMarine Demo 1 and there's InnovMarine 3. My user is InnovMarine 1. So once we're online, we're all going to be reviewing the same model interactively.
I can even follow Pierre. Are you online, Pierre Charles?
Not yet. I'm processing right now the sync.
Yeah, we had it all figured out that, well, this was happening.
Just leave it, Dave.
Yeah.
Just go back. You were able to see Alan as he was moving. What is the point of view that he had?
Yeah, he's in InnovMarine 3. Are you in InnovMarine 3? Yeah.
No, I'm InnovMarine 1.
Okay, so I'm gonna follow Alan. So Alan has his. Who's got your tablet down? Oh, okay. So I'm following you now. So as you were navigating the model, I was following you. Think about that in the design review section, right, where someone's either out of the ship or someone is leading the design review, and you want to see the exact same perspective that they're looking at. So there's the features I can.
So now I'm online.
Okay.
So you see there's InnovMarine 1. So even if we're all reviewing the same model, we can review like different perspectives. So I have the liberty to just like
I'm following you here,
here
Charles.
and then okay, I'll do it slowly then. So basically I can review the model, and then if I find something and I'm talking to my team and they want to see what I'm seeing, then they can follow me and see exactly what I'm seeing. If you go back to the pipe model status, you should see that the pipe status has changed.
That's not following.
All right, hold on. Let me stop following this user. No, and then I'll go back to.
You're also still following.
Okay, let me go back here for a second. I'm just going to refresh it and then come back in. I don't think I'm following anyone else right now. Oh,
Yeah, you're still following me.
Okay, and then we'll go back to the pipe status. Have you finished synchronizing here, Charles?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm online.
Okay.
And then that's just we're doing Samsung Galaxy tablet. Nothing special about that.
Yeah, it's a regular like Amazon, Samsung tablet.
Guess what?
What?
It's frozen a little bit. Okay, that's okay. That's okay.
Well, I mean, like you see, I see the other user where they're looking at.
Here?
Basically. This is really live.
Okay.
The Wi-Fi at the hotel. Right? So. I
Almost
want
done.
to change my configuration. configuration to show only the pipe status. I just need to go on pipe status. It will bring me back to a flat view because that's the way I pre-configure it. And then it will show also behaviors. I'll see the status of the pipe, so orange, green, gray, depending on pipe status. This guys.
Just so that you know, that refresh that I did just pulled the model down from the network server, which I think is at a data center just outside of Montreal, Canada. So just to show you how fast that model comes in. And that's a very large section. It's got structural, it's got pipe, it's got welds in it. So I think we're probably a minute to reload. But what I'll do is just quickly pop over here, go back to the piping status. And I should see, now I did. See how, we all remember that section of the pipe was gray, it's now green. Again, very simple behavior. I think Pierre Charles set it up such that green indicates that it's installed, it's fine, it's whatever. Okay, so we haven't even scratched the surface of what SmartShape is capable of. There's a lot more to it. If there's some interest, come on by and we'll show you a little bit more, tell you a little bit more. We kind of wrapped up the demo portion. I know Pat's anxious to get me off the stage.
We're about 10 minutes.
One question?
Your color-dependent status, what will it do for colorblind users?
You would choose different types of behaviors. Don't use color as a way of indicating a change in status. Use something else. Grayscale. Colorblind people can see grayscale. Hash patterns. Yeah, so yeah, it's a great question. There's ways to do that. Color just is the natural, inclination we have for changing, for indicating a change in status. It can be whatever you want. Good question. That's the first time I've had that. Okay.
Oh, Lord.
Any more questions?
Yeah, kill him.
No. A couple more. Oh, a couple after.
I'm curious if you can do a report on what, say, you picked a bunch of pipe, changed the color, it's been tested. Could you get a linear put off of it? Performance
On the reporting aspect, I mean,
Yes, I believe.
the latest, yeah, go ahead.
Well, because the status of those pipes has been changed, right? They've been inspected, they're installed or not installed, or whatever the behavior is. That information gets communicated back to your enterprise application, your PLM or whatever. You run the report off your PLM system to say how many linear feet of pipe have been inspected and passed. So the report will be generated from your PLM system, for example, once the synchronization has taken place. If, as part of your connection, you're originally pulling that information from your PLM, you're matching it up to the graphic and the model, and then once that status changes, it's updated on your enterprise application. That's where the report would come from. Any more questions? No?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, A-Team.